Hi, everyone. This is Rick Almendinger, and we're continuing with part 3 of navigating by app in the wilds. And in this part, we're going to be focusing on trails, and in particular, how you can use things like trail slope or percent grade to understand the difficulty of a trail that you might anticipate going up. In terms of our navigation roadmap, we've arrived at point 3, that is knowing where you want to go and the path that you want to take to get there. So the first thing to discuss is what are the sources of the digitized trails in various apps? And the answer is they come from a variety of different places. One of the most popular is the OpenStreetMap Consortium, which is an open source free project which has trail maps in addition to roads or streets throughout the world. And this is very useful, and they're oftentimes very high quality, but the source is unclear because anyone can contribute and edit the open data in the OpenStreetMap project. And so it's sometimes difficult to evaluate how good it is in any particular area. In the White Mountains and in other national forests, the U.S. Forest Service maintains a database of excellent quality digitized trails at 5-meter spacings, and this source is updated frequently, but it has the disadvantage that it's only within the national forest area, not in other parts such as state forests or private land or town forests and so on. In New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Granite site, which is the New Hampshire State GIS database, has digitized trails as well. But the vintage of these data, their quality, and the spacing is highly variable. In some places, it's great. In other places, it's not so hot. Some commercial apps such as All Trails and Hiking Project and so on, show individual users' tracks and perhaps use crowdsourcing to actually improve digitized trails, which can be an effective way to do it. But it's a fairly opaque process if you are using these apps. And most apps don't tell you what their source of data is. For what it's worth, the Appalachian Mountain Club collects its own data for their maps. It's excellent quality, but it's not available in any app at present. Here's an example of OpenStreetMap trails versus U.S. Forest Service trails in the Mahoosic Range along the New Hampshire-Maine border, showing you both the Appalachian Trail, which coincides with the Mahoosic Trail in this area, as well as the Carlo Cole Trail up to the north here. This is a notoriously rough and difficult set of trails, and you can see that overall there's excellent agreement between the two, but there are a couple of places where they disagree, and we don't actually know which is more accurate without going there ourselves and seeing them. But the difference in these two areas is several hundred feet in some cases. And that's enough that if you're trying to make your way under poor visibility conditions or poor weather conditions, might be enough to throw you off and get you lost and so on. If I had to choose, and in my own maps I did have to choose, I would use the Forest Service digitizations. Now, another thing to know about digitized trail is that, of course, when we're walking, we're dodging individual boulders, stepping older roots around tree trunks, and so on. But a digitized trail doesn't look like that. A digitized trail is a series of straight line segments, usually at a fairly even spacing. And as I mentioned, the Forest Service digitizes trails at about 5-meter intervals. And what that means is the digitized trail is not a perfect representation of what you actually walked. And the walked trail is almost always longer than the digitized distance. How much longer? Well, it's hard to say, but in my experience, it's on average, the walk distance is about 2.5% longer than the digitized distance. Okay, let's talk about topography and assessing the difficulty of your route. The first thing to know is that maps are a projection onto a horizontal plane, and that's true whether you're looking at a computer screen or a piece of paper. And so the trail that you actually walk on the surface is not the same length as the trail which you walk on the map, because one is a horizontal distance and the other is a slope distance. In a simplified cross section here with our hiker going up an inclined slope here, you can see that the slope distance is always longer than the map distance. And the two are related by the slope angle, that is how steep the slope is. Now, another common measure of steepness is percent grade, and that is the change in elevation, or the vertical difference in this triangle, divided by the horizontal distance, or the map distance. And the percent grade is just that ratio times 100. Now, we've all seen percent grade ratio on highways and so on when we see signs like this. And when you see a sign like this, you know that your brakes are going to get a workout because you're going down a fairly steep road. However, in terms of hiking, this is not really that steep at all. A 10% grade equates to about 6 degrees. So let's go to the most notorious, most difficult, and most dangerous trail in the entire White Mountains, the Huntington Ravine Trail, which I've rendered in a perspective view here using the LiDAR topography of the area. And going up the head wall of the Huntington Ravine Trail is not for the faint of heart. We're going to do another flyover here just to give you a brief sense for the topography that we're going up. All of this topography, by the way, is rendered at a 1-to-1 scale. And so we fly down into the valley, then up the valley along the trail. And you can see the famous fan up to the left. That's where the trail goes. Climbs up to the left. You go up the fan, then onto the ledges, and then up the very steep head wall. And that doesn't give you a feeling for how steep the Huntington Ravine Trail is. Perhaps this photo, which I borrowed from the Terrifying 25 website, will give you a better feel for the Huntington Ravine Trail. This is a seriously steep trail, not a trail you want to attempt in wet or icy weather by any means. So this is a trail profile showing you the actual slope with no vertical exaggeration of the trail up the Huntington Ravine Trail. It's not the same as the topographic slope because the trail has switchbacks which reduce the grade. But even so, the slope angle along the trail here is in excess, between the two red points, is in excess of 35 degrees. This segment at the top along the trail is actually approximately 40 degrees in slope. The top of the head wall itself is actually about 50 degrees, but the trail switches back, reducing the angle to about 40 degrees. And this is a good time to bring up an important concept in understanding trails and how dangerous they are and so on, and that is the angle of repose. The angle of repose for most materials is on the order of about between 28 and 32 degrees. And what that means is it is the angle at which loose material will slide or roll downhill. And that loose material could be the hiker who loses their footing on a slope like this. Most trails in New Hampshire with the name slide in their names, such as the Flume Slide or the North Triphammer Slide or the South Triphammer Slide, etc., are at the angle of repose. Huntington Ravine is actually steeper than the angle of repose. So any trail with a slope of greater than 20 degrees or 36% grade is a seriously steep slope and should be regarded with caution. So you want to pick an app that will tell you what the slopes are. Now here's a very simplified trail ranking based on slope angle, and I borrowed symbols from skiing to represent these trails, although they don't represent the same slope angles. So a slope angle from 0 to 10 degrees is generally a very easy trail. It's appropriate for all hikers of all abilities. And a slope angle of 10 to 20 degrees is one that requires sustained efforts, but it's not generally a dangerous trail. It just takes your breath away. You'll be breathing hard going up a 10 to 20 degree trail. When you get to the 20 to 30 degree trail or the black diamond category, this is a seriously steep trail, and a fall on such a trail could cause a significant injury. And trails greater than 30 degrees, these are our so-called double black diamond trails. These trails are terrifying for most of us because a fall on one of these trails could well be fatal. However, you should remember that all trails can have dangerous sections. Your 0 to 10 degree trail can cross a raging river, or it could have a short, very steep part which isn't captured in the topography, and yet would still be very dangerous. So just because an average slope angle is low doesn't mean that the trail isn't dangerous. And secondly, remember that it's always easier and safer to ascend a steep trail than to descend a steep trail. And again, choose a hiking app that will show you the slope, and then you can evaluate whether it's a trail that you're going to feel comfortable on and confident that you can arrive safely. That's it for this section. In the next section of this series of talks, in our last section, we'll talk about pace and route planning and so on. Thanks very much.